Hello and welcome to this week's Truth Proof live stream. This is live from the UK, so welcome everybody in the UK who joins us on the stream, and welcome everybody around the world who joins us on the stream as well. First of all, I've got to say thank you everybody for last week's super chat and the continuing super chat that we get. It's really helpful to help us improve what we're doing here. And also I've got to thank Deborah Singleton. She's moderating tonight. Andy might be in later, so thanks Debbie for coming on to tonight's stream. So first of all, we will go through and look and see who's in today's chat room. Well, we've got Jason Davis. Welcome to the show, Jason. Joe Moore, Stargazer, and believe it or not, we've got Paul Sinclair in the stream. Welcome, Paul. Yeah. Alison Buttle, welcome to the show, Alison. And let me go down. I don't want to miss anybody. NKMD Exploration, Laura Lamb, Chris King, Joe Weeks, and we are going down. Green Man Dawn, welcome to tonight's show then, Jeff. Tim Brennan, welcome Tim. Hope you're all well. Now, we're just going to do a little exercise here. If you can actually put in the chat where you are actually from, that's so you could be in the UK, and a lot of you are anywhere around the world. It's just interesting to see where you all are from. So that'd be great if you could put that in the chat as well. Right, so without me babbling on too much, as you know, it's a question time with just Paul and myself tonight. So any questions, please put in caps. Deborah will send them straight through to me, like a good person she is. And yes, so let's have a look. Without further ado, let's start the show running. And welcome to the show, Mr. Paul Sinclair. Hi, Paul.
Hi, Les, and let's see if we can kick a few ideas about tonight and, you know, get through an hour, 2 hours of interesting chat. Well, I hope it's going to be interesting for people listening and for myself, because tonight I haven't a clue what I'm going to say, people. But you just fire some questions at us. We've got a few things to talk about as well. I know Les put what constitutes proof, and I talked to Don Logic, or Don that spoke to me about it earlier in the week, and it does kind of make you think, doesn't it? You know, exactly what would be needed to constitute proof, to be evidence in the subject that we all look in, that we all kind of look into, and I don't really know. I don't know where, as much as we find evidence, most of it's anecdotal. And I think everybody knows that. It's not anecdotal in your head. When you've seen it, you can't unsee it. When you've experienced it, felt it, smelt it, you can't undo those things. But it's still anecdotal evidence at the end of the day, which isn't admissible in a court of law. But we're not in a court of law. You know, and you know, obviously we're not breaking new ground here. Loads of people will be asking similar questions for different genres and different types of thing. But when it comes to the amount of anecdotal evidence that we've amassed, the people within the paranormal, UFO, spirit world, there must be more of it than anything else in the world, perhaps except religion. But you know, we're told that that's real. I think everybody in this room knows what we're looking into. There's a reality to it. You will get your charlatans. You do get people lying. The things that happened to me in childhood, I can't prove. I can't, you know, and there my argument falls down. I can't prove one bit of it. I see that there's people in chat now. There's a guy in chat. I know what he saw in 2002. He can't prove. I believe him. Do you know what I mean? There's other people in chat. There's Deborah Singleton who's doing our moderation tonight. Deborah's had some incredible experiences of a paranormal nature. One of them on Lane at Bempton. Can she prove it? No. But I think we've got to establish that it's overwhelming. I'm looking at Les here, but I'm aiming it at everybody. So fire us your questions or your views on that in any way, shape or form. If I can't answer it or if I don't have an opinion, I'll just say. So do we have any questions, Les?
Yeah, I'll come in because we did get some in the chat room, and thanks for sending the questions in, guys. Jason Davis, who you know very well, Paul. Hi, Paul and Les. Do you think we've ever seen the real form of the phenomena? Well, that's a broad question, isn't it, that one? So I don't know where to start.
Question, yeah. But before we sort of go into that, Night People. Jason Davis did the cover of Night People that you can see at the back of Les, at the back of his shoulder there. Brilliant artist, and can't recommend his work enough. But great question, Jason. Have we ever seen the true form of the phenomena? Do we know what it is? Is the phenomena of the cryptids, the UFOs, the poltergeist, the ghosts, is it all one thing? Are we so immersed in the subject that, you know, you've got your UFO people and the nuts and bolts structured craft people and they want to see them? Is it one all-encompassing hive mind that's producing this for that person? I'm not saying it is. I don't know if we've ever seen true form of the phenomena. Maybe it is just pure intelligence. Maybe it's producing holograms. Yeah, I just don't know.
Okay, I'll move on to the next question, Paul. Joe Moore. Hi, Paul. A change in atmosphere is often mentioned by experiences, but do you or any of the witnesses you interview ever notice any smell when experiencing phenomena?
I have, and I know a lot of people I've spoken to have, and a lot of other researchers have noted it. Like I said, we're not breaking new ground here, but it's a good question, and it's a metallic taste that I've noted and tasted, and particularly, well, not particularly, but during the wave of animal mutilations, and we'll not go too deep into them tonight, but at one point during a walk through that woodland, when I heard the robotic type voices, there was a metallic taste in the air. Almost, you know, I always try to think of analogies to liken these things to, and if you've ever been daft like I have as a schoolboy, have you put your tongue on a battery and got that, you get the buzz but you get that taste, like that. And other people, you might agree, you might disagree, but it's all good. And just before we go to another question, I noticed Peter Masters in chat said, because we were on about hard evidence, and he said, like we experienced, Paul, up at Bempton. And we're all right for 2 minutes to stick with this, Les, yeah?
Yeah, sure.
Yesterday morning early, myself, Peter Masters and Bob went up to Bempton. Peter's something of an electronics wizard, and he buys all sorts of sophisticated, high-quality gear to look out for radio signals, to look out for microwave energy, and all sorts of things. And we took his laptop up, and we'll get to that in a moment, and he'd made this antenna. He's not an amateur, by the way. He's got a lifetime of working with this kind of equipment. And Bob held the antenna, and it's omnidirectional, but we're facing it in all places. And this is probably not paranormal, and I think Peter would agree with that, but it's unusual. We're on the edge of the cliff. We've got the North Sea 20 foot to the back of us. We've got farmland in front and at either side of us. And in the same place where we picked it up 6 months ago, which is pretty much just in front of RAF base, we pick a massive block on his computer, just going up constantly, this signal. We don't know what it is. He doesn't know what it is. It's proof of something. I know there's a submarine training ground off Bempton and Flamborough, but when we aimed the receiver out to sea, the signal weakened. So from there, we packed the gear up. There's another little bit to add, but we'll go to the microwave tester in a moment. We packed the gear up and we went to Speeton, which was be about 2 to 3 miles away, because in between the defunct RAF Bempton and Speeton, when you get to edges of Speeton, there's another military base, be a small one. I think most of it's underground, and there's huge antennas just popping up all over the place. My theory, or my feelings, were that this signal that we were detecting was from this base. So we pulled up at Speeton, we got the equipment out, I filmed it all. The signal's there, but weaker. So it's not that. So we need to do more experiments. I don't, and is it going to lead us anywhere? I don't know. But what's interesting, as a side note, Peter brought a small microwave leakage detector up, the kind you'd use for a pat test or to test, obviously to test whether your microwave's safe. And he put this thing on, and we're on cliff tops. It should be flatlining really, but no, it's not. It's reading. And the levels, people, they might be acceptable levels, but we're reading, I think it was 1.48 and thereabouts, just in this particular area so that there was some kind of microwave residue or energy being emitted there. One more thing, when we've spent time, and I mean time over a period of years on the cliff tops, we've all noted, and it's not every night, it's not even every month, but you'll go up sometimes, and the batteries will deplete on your cameras, your phone, everything. Steve Ashbridge, perfect example, spent a few £100 on a thermal imaging camera for his phone. Can't use it up there. It just literally drains the battery. He's tried it twice, drains the battery, and it's new. It's happened with cameras. Andrew Collins went up. Andrew, I don't know if he'll get to listen to this, but he'll back up he knows what I'm going to say if he is. And all his camera equipment, batteries depleted. We were there, myself, Bob Brown and Andrew's friend. I've had the batteries depleted. Amanda's thermal camera, the same thing happened. So what I'm getting at is yesterday morning, Peter took his laptop up and he said it had 2 to 3 hours on a full charge without being plugged in. So it's on 100%. Sets his equipment up. Within 20 minutes, it's down to, I think it was 42%. I mean, he can correct me if I'm wrong there, but it was down to, I think he said 42%. It shouldn't have been. So as we packed the gear up and drove to Speeton, based on that really, because we wanted enough energy, enough power in the battery to actually get to do this second experiment at Speeton. You can call them experiments, but when we got to Speeton and he put his laptop back on, it's up to 78%. And when you get a torch and your batteries go and you leave it for a few hours and you put it back on and light comes on for a minute or two and then it dims, it's not that weren't the effect. We stayed at Speeton for another 20 minutes to 30 minutes, and it was still 68%, I think, or thereabouts when we left. So that in itself was interesting. I mean, because I noted that Steve had said when his battery had been drained on the thermal, when he got back home in Hornsey, it's back up. So I don't know what's happening there. Perhaps there's some electrical geniuses within this chat or who might be listening to this at a later date that can enlighten us. We're not looking for something of a paranormal nature here. We're looking what's causing this signal.
Yeah. So when he takes the equipment up there and he's seen the spikes on his laptop, and you say you went to Speeton to see if it got any stronger. Yeah. Now, is there any way he can tell if these signals are coming from under the ground? Are they coming from the level of the ground or on a hill?
We can't tell, to be honest, Les. All we know is the signal got weaker when we aimed it out at sea, but not only marginally. But you could aim it in the air, you could aim it down at the ground, right, left, any position really, and it was pretty much and it weren't a spike; it was a big block just going up the screen. Now, I suppose that might be terminology anyway, Les. You might be right there. But when we got to Speeton, we'd got the same signal, only much weaker. So that ruled out anything to do with that base, in my opinion. But we might never get to bottom of it. But just an interesting little exercise, I think. And
yeah, I mean, I'm just going to chime in there, Paul. Do you think if you did some like base level tests outside the area of interest, so you've got some comparison, so you've got some base level where there's probably just mediocre Wi-Fi and 4G signals, and then come into that area and see if it's phenomenally higher?
You must have been reading Peter's mind, because he's rang me this afternoon, and that is just what he's suggested. That's his next move. So yeah, we'll be sort of developing it. I mean, I did film it. I don't think it's going to be riveting film, and I don't mean Peter's boring, by the way. I know he's listening to this. That's not the case, but it's not like listening to a cryptid account or a UFO account. But I think it's valid, because we're in an area where strange things happen, and we've got these weird we've got the microwave energy, and we've got these weird, very powerful signals that we don't know where they're coming from. And I don't mean they're coming from space either. It's just, but it's really interesting. More questions, Les? Or
yeah, I've. Excuse me while I divert to the other screen.
Did you guys have an RF meter? Well, we also took Bob's tri-field meter, which was a good quality one, and we tried it on a few settings. It didn't really pick up what the equipment Peters were picking up. But sorry, Les, fire away.
Yeah, okay. Good question from Stargazer Eternal One. Hi, Paul. Have you experienced missing time or other time anomalies? So that's a good question.
It's an interesting one in that I spoke to somebody this morning who's probably going to be in chat. I don't know whether he still is, because I don't know what name he would use in chat. But he thinks he had missing time last week, whilst doing, of all things, I'm not going to say his name, visiting the bathroom in the night, the ensuite. I think he said something like there's an hour discrepancy. I'll get the story off him, and I'll attempt to talk about it next week when I get more information. But it triggered a memory for me, and I don't know if I wrote about it in Night People. I think I probably did, where we have a little ensuite in our bedroom, and I went to the bathroom early hours at morning, we'll say between 2 and 3, and when I came out, I remember a flash of light that were like monochrome. That's all I can. Everything in the room just went to like black and white, and I stood there for ages in a kind of daze, wondering what had happened, and then went back to bed. Now, I don't know whether I had missing time there. Because of the things that have happened, I've put a camera in bedroom, which drives my missus mad, to be honest with you. First thing she does is put a sheet over it, but I remove it. Now, for some reason, the CCTV didn't work. So is that something, or is it just a quirky bit of coincidence? It could be. So once again, anecdotal evidence. I'm telling you a story. I can't prove one way or other. So fire away, Les.
Right, I've got no more questions.
Oh, no problem. I just need to say as well, there's
we'd like everybody to put the questions in the chat for us, because we don't have any guest on this week. It's just you've just got me and Paul, and Paul, I'm sure it's sometimes when we have the guests on, we don't have enough time to get through all the questions. So this is your opportunity now to give us those questions, and obviously we'll try and get through as many as we can tonight. So
just before we go to the question, then I think there's one there. Let's just stick with what is good evidence. What do people think is good evidence? Do photographs cut it anymore? So, with the advent of Photoshop, if somebody produced an absolutely incredible photograph, is it too good? Are we wasting his time if we got a good photograph? Is it more of a come down to put it on and get told that we're fakes than actually show it? There's that to look at, and then we've got obviously the video footage. Somebody's going to say it's CGI. If we were lucky enough to get some at this year at Bempton or anywhere where we visit, I think just going to say it's CGI. Do we just sit on it and say nothing? Because sometimes it's quite painful if you've tried your hardest and you have actually got something of interest on film, and all people do is say fake. It's so easy when you're sat in an armchair, I don't know if they say armchair, or sat looking at a computer screen just to say fake. It's and I mean, a lot of times these things will be. I'm not saying everybody's totally genuine, but where do we go with it? What would be good evidence? Because as far as I can see, an overwhelming volume of anecdotal evidence from a location that seems to be prevalent for UFO sightings by independent witnesses unconnected to each other is good evidence. To me, that's stronger evidence than video footage or a photograph. In the way that people react to that kind of evidence at the moment, with photographs and video. So, do we have any questions now? Hi, Paul. Have you spoken to the couple who reported the visit from Wilsthorpe recently?
Oh, yeah.
Have I spoken to the couple who reported the visit from Wilsthorpe recently? Or to the visit? I'm assuming that you're talking about the couple who saw the objects over the sea at Wilsthorpe in September 2009, and I've not spoken to them for quite a long time now. I know there's only one of them there now, to be honest with you, and I did speak to them both at the time. I did believe their story. The 16 flats, I'll not go into massive detail because we've told it before on here, but the 16 flats overlooking the North Sea at a little spot called Wilsthorpe here in East Yorkshire. Their gardens go right to the edge of the beach, so like we said, you can throw a stone into the sea at high tide, theoretically. Now, when they saw them in September, there's probably only 4 or 5 of those flats occupied because they're not lived in year round. A lot of them are holiday lets. Well, there's only 16, but the bulk of them are holiday lets. So that rules out why other people didn't see lots. I know the guy next door, and I know him quite well. It just by coincidence that he happens to live next door to this couple, and he remembers her talking about it sort of with great passion the day after she'd seen these things. He remembers the military coming, he remembers the Chinook helicopters, he remembers the Lynx helicopters coming and the military arriving on the beach. So we know those things happened. My freedom of information requests confirmed that those things happened, only they're not going to tell me anything because as they, in their words, it were a top secret military exercise. What I find interesting is I've got this report from 2009 from the couple. On the strength of that, we found out when the military exercise had begun, and it was September. I think it was about September 16th, 17th. Well, they saw it on 14th or 15th, and top secret military exercise on a beach in front of 16 flats. There's miles of sand either side of you with nothing, but you just have to do it there, where the old couple looked out of their window and saw what they described as a circle of UFOs over the sea, and the sea boiling like a pan of water with electricity sparking from it or arcing from it and all sorts of things like that. Wilsthorpe's an incredible case, and I've just about finished Truth Proof 4, which is the last Truth Proof book that I'll be doing for a while. I will be doing some more. But I will be working on Wilsthorpe. It's time to uncover some more. We've got another witness, Carly. She was in the vehicle. This is after September. This is November. Driving home with her work colleague, paralleling the road that's at the back of Wilsthorpe, the main road down into Bridlington, when the red car in front of her, 3 or 4 cars in front of her, suddenly started swerving. They thought the driver had either fell asleep at the wheel, he was drunk. They didn't know what were the matter with him, but he slowed down and pulled in, and they slowed down and overtook him. And when she looks to her right, in the field behind the hedgerow is only about 12 foot, there's a huge UFO travelling, paralleling their car. Now, if this was a Chinook helicopter, and that's not been suggested, by the way, but if it was, it would have chopped up the hedgerow like a lawnmower. It just couldn't have happened. It was literally paralleling the hedgerow. It had got 2 red lights on it, one at the front, one at the back, oval shaped. The length of her car and the length of the 3 to 4 cars and the car in front is what she estimated before that one stopped. Obviously, she saw that afterwards. She couldn't see the height of it. It was too tall. As they're driving down, a companion in the car were going hysterical, absolutely terrified. She's made several attempts to get this other lady to speak to me, but she won't. But what I like about this witness is we're going to do the interview, and I'm going to hopefully record and film as we're going down that road and get a really good version of events of what happened. So this is November 2009. It stopped roughly where the roundabout is at Wilsthorpe, this object, turned on itself and shot straight out to sea. Not unlike the police officer sighting from earlier in the year, just about 2 miles up the road, then this thing passed over the top of his car. And he believes it stopped everything, all the electrics and everything in his car as it passed over, but everything sent to pick up again. He says that because couldn't get the window down on the car, to look at this thing as it went over. So I've probably been a bit long-winded there, guys, with this, because I weren't sure the true context of that question, but I hope it's answered something. Oh, one more thing, Les. and I know I've told you this before, but there is a Coast Guard report in Protected Archive that, how do I know? Because I'm good friends with the Coast Guard who's put me in the know, who sort of told me this, and it came in from the police on or around the night that the old couple saw the UFOs, and this lady claims that she saw orange spheres of light travelling from the direction of Hull towards Wilsthorpe, and spheres of light travelling from Flamborough Head towards Wilsthorpe, but they were meeting up or going towards what looked like a black yacht sail in the sky. Well, that tells me a black triangle, to be honest with you. And so Wilsthorpe's got miles and miles and miles of running to do yet, and no doubt when we do get around to doing Truth Proof 5, you know, it will eventually. I'm hoping I'll have lifted a lot more stones.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for that, Paul. I've got a question now from. Right, a change of subject here. From Beast Titan. Welcome to the show, Beast Titan. Yeah. Do you think dogmen reside in Cannock Chase, or have there been any reports of dogman in that area?
Dogman, werewolf. I think we're probably talking about the same thing. I know people really are keen on pushing the word dogman now, and I just think it's words, to be honest with you. It don't really affect me that much. I mean, I'll jump to your question in a moment, but we're doing Wolflands, and the witnesses that we've spoke to primarily are saying werewolf. But I think we're talking about the same thing, you know. But Cannock Chase, I've never been. I would like to go, and I know it's an area renowned for cryptids, for werewolf, dogman type sightings. So there's something there. Once again, let's jump back to evidence. Because the evidence points to where it points, and this area, that particular area, Cannock, keeps getting reports of these type of cryptids. So, and I'm assuming it's not the same person reporting them. So if it's not the same person reporting them, and they've nothing to gain by reporting them, let's try and attach a little bit of truth to what's there. Same as with Wolflands, and same with our witnesses. I mean, none of them got anything to gain by talking about what they've told us. And yeah, I think we've got to start and place a lot more importance on anecdotal evidence, simply because it's all we've got. And when it comes in such vast volumes of witness testimony, it's got to be valid anyway. And we're not in a court of law. We're not being scrutinised in a court of law, despite what the skeptic stroke debunker keeps throwing at us. That won't stand up in a court of law. Well, so what? What can I do about that? All I'm telling people is that we've got multitudes of witnesses all saying they've seen similar things. They're either all lying or they're seeing something.
I've got a question from Carl Helsby. Welcome to the show, Carl. Do you know of any strangeness near Wigan? Now, I know this is outside your area of research.
I don't, to be honest. And you know, obviously, if you have and you want to talk about it at some point, you know, just put some questions across to us, and we'll try and address it.
Yeah, I mean that's a good point, Paul. I mean, if anybody's got any accounts of anything strange, unusual, Paul's got a reporting page on the Truth Proof website, which you can fill in. And and a question came in, and I'd just like to tag on to that, Paul. I can't remember. I can't remember who asked it, but I will get the name shortly. How do you differentiate the wheat from the chaff? Which I always think is a good question.
It is a good question. Let's stay with cryptids for a moment then. Just as an example, and I'm not labelling everybody with this kind of brush, but someone told me that they'd got cryptid, we call it dogman, near their home, and you know, would I drive to where they lived and sort of look into this and listen to their story? And I did a bit of googling, and they lived in a semi-detached council house on edge of a little bit of a woodland. And I'm not knocking the council house people. I lived in one myself. You know, I grew up in one. It's not wrong with that. But my point is, this thing was huge, and it had been on roof, and they were clay pan tiles. As a joiner, as a roofer, I know that me at 12 to 13 stone can go through them tiles. So something I've been told is £300 to £400 stamping about on roofing. So there's the wheat from the chaff. I weren't rude, I just didn't go. But lots of it, you get examples of people sending pictures of orbs. And the first thing I would say is, did you see this when you were actually taking the photograph? Because not in all cases, but in most cases, when you've got these orbs, they're dust particles, and they'll zoom in and they'll see faces in them and things. And it's once again not in all cases, but in most cases, it's like pareidolia, and I can see an angel in a cloud if I look hard enough. Do you know? So it's difficult to. Like I don't want to crush everybody's ideas and say that nothing's real, because I think anybody listening to me now knows that the things I've seen, and I know there's a reality to this, but you do have to draw a line with some things,
Yeah, I've got a question from Lee James Blunt. Great music, by the way, Lee. Yeah, you do fantastic music. Hi, Paul. Have you ever spotted or heard sightings of the man on the bike who said to you bringing down the lights? I know you've covered this lots and lots of times, but if you can just remind people of the story itself.
Well, no sightings of that person since that day. Absolutely nothing at all. And I wish I could remember year. Someone tells me it was 2015, and because I was writing first book, and basically, me and mobile phones are pretty useless. So I get my daughter's cast-offs. And Jess gave me a phone, and I had to take it to be unlocked. So we left the house this morning. It was a crisp, very cold, sunny winter's morning, or just approaching winter. And as I'm walking down the street, there's a guy on the other side of the street, and it's quite wide, and he shouts straight away. He just shouts at me. I know what he was shouting now, but I didn't at first. And the words were, you're bringing down the light. You're bringing down the light, or words to that effect. And I just looked at him and went, oh yeah, it's a sunny day, mate. Enjoy it. We're not going to have many more of these, because I just didn't know. I thought that were odd. And he had his shirt off, and he had quite a distinct physique, because he had all the muscles in right places, a bit like Action Man, but no veins. It was weird. He looked like Spam, that sort of consistency. So I carried on walking down the street, and he's still shouting at me, you're causing big trouble, you're bringing down the light. Because as we drew level with him, I got a bit of an idea what he was talking about. So do you want me to carry on with this, Les? I know we've done it before, but I will. So I went round and got the phone unlocked. Sort of said to Mary, my wife, God, he was weird, weren't he? Strange one. And he must have rattled me, because I thought about, you can do a big loop and get round street other way. And I thought about going round other way. So it must have bothered me. I didn't. So I came back, and when he were at the other side of the road, he's there, stood with his jeans on and no shirt and an old bike at the side of him. So when I walk round the corner from the promenade at Bridlington onto Lansdowne Road, I can see him, and he's moved to our side of the road, and he's got his back to us, and he's got a very tight-fitting dark brown jumper on. Obviously, from that distance, I didn't know a dark brown at the time, but I knew it were him instantly. Bald head. So I said, oh my God, he's there. So anyway, I carried on walking. Before I got to him, he turned round. He looked at me, and he went, and he got full wrap-round sunglasses on. And if at the barber at the bottom of I'll not say my street, the barber at the bottom of our street ever listens to this live stream, he might want to come on and back me up, because he'd been watching him with some people that were in his shop, because they thought how strange he was, and he thought he were waiting for me, because he said he just homed in on me straight away. So anyway, he'd looked, just we're facing each other, and he went, you've got to stop what you're doing. You're bringing down the light. You're causing big trouble. And I said, what do you mean? What are you on about? He said, you know what you're doing? You're causing big trouble. You must stop bringing down the light. And that's all he kept repeating. And I'm sort of facing him. My wife's just to his right, and she's observing bike. And I didn't look at it. It's the other side of the road, which is interesting in itself. In end, I was getting that frustrated, because I couldn't talk my way out of this guy's words. Because he was saying more things, but everything I said, it was like a riddle. And he reached out, and he just touched my wife on the shoulder, then moved his hand, and he goes, I'm not talking about her, I'm talking about you. You're causing big problems. And it was so intimidating. It was such a strange situation. And I asked him where he was from, and he said Rickle. I'd never heard of Rickle. I didn't know. I have now. I know where it is now. And we sort of went home. My wife said, "God, he was strange," kind of thing. And I mean, Mary's not really as into this subject as what I am, but she said, "Do you think he were an alien?" Her exact words, you know. So anyway, that's the guy, the bringing down the light guy. Interestingly, a man went missing not long afterwards at Bempton, and this is how we connected the location. This guy went missing, and he were in our paper at first, and it said from Rickle. It weren't him, by the way. It weren't that man, and that's probably just a quirky coincidence, but it was very strange. And yeah, that's the business of the creepy kind of guy with the bike. Oh, my wife said, "Did you realise that his bike had no brakes on it, right or left on handlebars?" So, and when we found out where this place was, it's 45, 50 miles away. Would you travel that far on an old beat-up treacle tin green push bike,
Yeah.
you know, without brakes?
I'm going to ask one question. You know, you said there's a barber at the end of your street. He saw him sat on the wall, and he thought he was waiting for you, obviously.
Yes, he did.
Yeah. Now, when you left?
He's agreed to go on film as well.
But when you left this guy, and yet then obviously you went inside. Did the barber then see the guy leave on this bike? What you were saying, or your wife noticed, wasn't really roadworthy.
No, he's never answered that one. I could ask him tomorrow. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's just I just wondered because you went inside, and obviously you don't know what happened to him, but he might have seen what happened to him.
Well, your good point. We went inside and we looked on CCTV, live play, straight away, and he'd gone. We didn't do playback, and perhaps we ought to have done. You don't take things in, even when you're into this subject like we're into it. We'll get back to this in a moment. But you know, when you see something quite startling on cliff tops, you don't. First thoughts aren't grab your camera and film it. You're that kind of rabbit in headlights that you're digesting what you're looking at for a few moments. Do you know what I mean? And I'd never come across somebody like this, somebody as intense. It was intimidation. That's what it were. I know exactly what it was. It was intimidation, because there were a point just when he reached his arm out, and I looked at him and I'm looking at his build and I'm thinking, I'm thinking I was going to attack him. I'll be honest with you. I mean, it's probably not words to say on a live stream, but we would have ended up rolling around the floor. But I think it was intimidation. But for why, I don't know.
Interesting, no, that one. It always intrigues me, that story, Paul. And where he figures in all this, I'm sure a lot of people would like to know that, including yourself. Okay, right.
Well, there is something else, Les, and I think we're going to have to come back to it next week or week after, because I can't quite think what it is, but there is something else, and I don't mean I've seen him since. There's something else, and me and you also know of it. We'll not say his name, of a young guy, very close to, in between Speeton and Bempton, that got stopped by a stranger at the same time. They had to get the police out because he grabbed him and told him that the aliens were coming. This is on some desolate road, well,
B road, yeah,
in Bempton, that the aliens were coming, and they're up in the sky, and they're coming from the sky, frightened this lad to death. And I'm pretty sure you know about that as well, Les.
Yeah, I knew him. He had no interest in the subject himself, and so the only link was with he knew that I knew you.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean. So I don't know. There was anything in that.
To push the story. I mean, I had to prise it out of him, but the police arrived. They never found the man, so I don't know what were happening there. That were at a similar time.
Yeah, well, he was a young age once. I think he was about 15 or something.
Yeah.
So okay, we'll move on.
The Action Man was an alien. I think there's something. He was a strange one, Jane. He was a strange one. Strange sort of makeup of his body and skin texture, and I couldn't see his eyes because of the wraparound glasses. And I did a sort of bit of a caricature sketch of him in the first Truth Proof book. Yeah. And so yeah, a strange one.
Let's have a look then. Right then, tablet's all gone. Let's have a look. Do you think... Teresa Walker, welcome to the show, Teresa. Do you think the Hadron Collider is being used to open other dimensional portals?
Well, you know, I haven't got any scientific knowledge. You know, it's a great question. And I suppose some people could sit here and go, oh, yeah, I think it is. But I really don't know. I suppose anything's possible with what they're trying to do with that. And it makes you wonder if they're dabbling in things maybe that they shouldn't be dabbling in. But
well, it's something you don't hear of anymore now, do you, really?
Yeah, it's like a lot of things, isn't it? It makes big news for a while, and then something else will take over, like seeing a picture of Jesus on a slice of toast. You know, that's more important.
Yeah. Don Lodge, I know you've already gone through this question. Yeah, he's asking about the Photoshop. In the days of Photoshop, aren't a couple of good witnesses more convincing than a photo or video?
100% agree. Yeah, I would think so, Don. And it's Don's fault for getting me into this proof thing tonight.
Yeah. Well, this is it. All images that you see on YouTube, anywhere, videos given to you, can all be manipulated as easy as anything.
And it kind of puts you off because you wonder. You just wonder if it's worth it. I mean, like we've invested in this low light equipment, we've invested in the thermal camera, and if we ever do get anything, if there's enough voices shouting fake,
yeah,
you can't win. It's really difficult. I just think the evidence en masse, be it anecdotal from independent people, is as good as.
Yeah. I mean, I guess, I'm just looking from somebody who produces images myself, is that the next best thing to somebody providing a video link on YouTube, the video, if it's security footage which has not been tampered with, which can be proven hasn't been tampered with, then obviously that's interesting in itself, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And obviously this don't give you excellent or guaranteed proof, but Amanda Eames, who comes onto Cliff Tops with us, bought a bar for her tripod that can mount 3 cameras. And when she comes up, she'll put a thermal on it, she'll put the psionics on it. Well, I'm started to do the same, because that is another way of strengthening the proof should we actually get something on film, if we can get it, say, on independently on 2 cameras at the same time. That would be something. So we've just got to keep chipping away. Me saying that film footage, you know, it sort of disheartens people. It's not going to deter me. I'll still be trying. You know, that's the aim. But whether we get it or not, I don't know, because I contradict myself, because I keep saying the phenomena is always one step ahead. It's always in front of it seems to be in front of our thinking. It's anticipating out what we're going to do.
Yeah, and just to add my 2p worth on this one, I think to collect information on video, photographs, this all it kind of goes along with your experience at the time, because nobody can take that experience away from you or anybody else who's in your vicinity who experiences the same thing. So, but the video and audio, photographs support that as well. So it's not all in one thing or another. It's a combination of things.
Yeah, you know, so it's sort of, it's good kicking these things about. I'm going to read something now. What a good friend of mine, a Coast Guard, sent me. Well, I'll not say his name, but he's of quite high standing, or he was. Yeah, he's not passed away, by the way, but I'll just say he was, as he's not in the job. And I was asking him about what's been seen around Coast Guard stations and the reports. In particular, a report that I managed to obtain that was titled Object, and it described this dark object landing on the surface of the sea. And when I actually got the report, the word object had been removed. But I didn't mind putting it back for the truth proof book, because I'd seen it. I'd actually seen it on a log. And here he says, Paul, let me assure you, we are trained in how to deal with members of the public and are very careful not to use certain words in reports. You will find it very difficult to find anything written that uses the terms like UFO or unexplained phenomena. Then he's gone, I remember me and a colleague being tasked to a job one night after members of the public reported seeing a strange light. We both clearly saw what had been reported by the members of the public, the MOP, members of the public. When we reported back, my colleague said that he thought it was an aircraft because he could hear its engine. Paul, I can tell you we both saw the same object. It moved faster than anything you have ever seen before, and it was 100% silent. Do you think our official report said this? You know, and how many more reports like that? I'm not saying that that's kind of corrupt, but how many more reports are masking the extent of the phenomena simply because they haven't got a clue what's happening, like I've described, and I'll not go in detail now because I do it too much with the lights and the multiple call-outs by lifeboat. And something's been seen, something definitely has been seen, otherwise they wouldn't put helicopters in air and put lifeboats out to sea. But when nothing can be found, we have a broad sweeping statement, false alarm with good intent. It's proper investigation. Something's real's there.
Yeah, and a lot of these agencies and professional agencies, government agencies, I mean, obviously they're trained into how to write these things up, as you were suggesting there, and to omit the obvious, unidentified aircraft and things like that. So obviously, and all the other researchers, investigators out there, your Philip Mantles and all that, they have all these written down, don't they, you see? They've all got access to these as well as yourself. And the thing is, that is just clouding and muddying the waters even further.
It is, and, I suppose if it's part of your job because not everybody's going to treat the unexplained phenomena with a degree of seriousness. You're just like, I don't know, people report seeing unexplained lights in Danes Dyke, and you'll get a group of people just running around and screaming in dark. So they have to have an air of professionalism about them. I do understand that, but to actually file a report and put it down to an aircraft because you're frightened to say we actually saw something that moved faster than anything we could really comprehend, and it was totally silent, and because it creates an air of mystery, and obviously the flares, going out to see these mystery flares. They crop up over decades and decades, right from earliest advent of the lifeboats. People have gone out to perceived flares, to find the ships in distress, to find the aircraft that have probably come down, and found nothing.
Yeah, I mean, look at commercial aircraft pilots. I mean, they were discouraged totally in when they give a report, even if they give a report at all.
Yeah.
I mean, look how many
people that are now stepping forward, Les, and actually talking about it, being a bit braver, a bit more bold, and coming out with the things that they've actually seen. And it's the ridicule factor. I don't know, where does anybody listening to this now think that this ridicule factor comes from? Why is it less attractive to talk about UFOs and from people who actually seen these things? Why are they so discouraged and so frightened to talk about what they've seen? And who's issuing all this sort of, I don't know, this mass media fed sarcasm and ridicule? I don't know where it started and where it would end. I mean, things do seem to be getting easier, but it's a real difficult one.
Yeah. Right then, I've got a question from, I think you've Wandering North. Did the guys have an RF meter at Spean? You've answered that one, haven't you, Paul?
The Peter had his equipment, his electrical equipment, and he might want to, if he wants to put in chat what it is, he's welcome to. And we also had the microwave testing bit of kit, and we also had Bob Brown's tri-field meter.
Right.
And that covered a broad spectrum of different sort of magnetic anomalies and frequencies. Go on, Les. Hotels.
Okay, yeah, we've got loads of questions, and thanks for all the questions coming in. Deborah is working overtime tonight. I'll tell you, I'll
Well,
tell you that for nothing. We have got loads, so let me now try and find where I shouldn't have scrolled from. I don't think.
well, before you get to the question, then I've just got a quick sighting
Yes.
from a guy called Wayne Harmon, who kindly sent this to truthproof.uk website on 24th of 8th, 21.
Right.
He went to Bempton with his son and a friend. His son, I think, his son's serving in military. I'm not sure if he said Royal Fusiliers. If I've got that wrong, I apologise. But he's serving in military, and it were Wayne and a family friend. They went up there. They got there about 6 o'clock. They travelled to. It'll be a quick one, this, Les. But they travelled to Speeton. On foot, walked up to Speeton. Went back to car park. They decided to have a wander to Danes Dyke, and then later on at night, I'm not sure what time, after 9 o'clock, they went back to the cliffs of Bempton.
Right.
At around 10 o'clock, further down the cliffs, and where he's described it, I'm thinking it's somewhere like a staple nuke, which is one of the stands, and there's an outcrop of rock that looks like a staple in the water.
Yeah.
He said a large orange sphere appeared on the side of the cliffs. He said it just hung there, and they were watching it. And they watched it for 10 to 15 minutes. Now, I know what people are going to say. Why didn't they get photographs? I would have said exactly the same, over that length of time, but I'm just giving you the report. Said, instantly, this thing moved about 600 yards towards them and then stopped. They said everything felt off then. He says, we just didn't feel right. He said, and we made us way up to car park. We were going to stay till about 12:30. He said, but we looked from the car park down and it just didn't feel right, and they left. So that's just a sort of quick sighting, and myself, Bob Brown, Amanda, Steve Ashbridge, we've been visiting them cliff tops now. I mean, I've been up, apart from tonight, just about every night this week. Nothing. Absolutely nothing to see. But then you've got other people going up and seeing things, and good on them,
How far away do they think this glowing ball of light was from them?
Originally, it would have been about 3/4 of a mile away, and then moved 600 yards towards them, and they didn't feel comfortable.
Yeah.
And they
So
left.
So when it got to 600 yards in
No,
front
it
of them...
travelled 600 yards.
it travelled, yeah.
He said in about 2 seconds. He said it took about 2 seconds in their estimation. I mean, we're only getting somebody's word for this.
Yeah.
But it's typical of what's reported. I mean, I don't know year. Chris Turner, I think he's in chat. He might remember year. But it was when Awakening conference were on, and me and Chris had been talking at the conference in Manchester, and we came straight back from Manchester. I think apologies. It was when the Outer Limits conference were on. And we came back from Hull, and we went straight up to cliff tops at Bempton, simply because Mark Farnell were going up, and we didn't want to leave him up on his own. But to get to it, we were on one of the stands looking out over the sea, and all three of us, four, including Mark's wife, were looking at a silver sphere on the rocks below. And Chris just said to me, and this is the thing, we'd all got cameras. Chris says, are you looking at what I'm looking at? I said, yeah, I am. This is the sphere. And then it had gone.
Yeah.
It's rabbit in headlights time. You are trying to solve what you're looking at, without a doubt. I think we all do it. We're looking for logical answers, and that's the delay, And same thing. Sphere that were on the bottom of the cliffs. This thing were on side. What these get this? Did I say Mark Harmon?
Yeah.
It's on the website. There's a load of reports on Truth Proof website. I think with 100 odd reports, and they're all quite original. So anybody that wants to have a look. Just and if you want to contribute, if you want to write anything in, just send it to us at truthproof.uk, and myself or Don Lodge will reply to you and get as many details as we can if there's insufficient.
I've got a good question from Gillian Stapleton. Do you think that the advent of nuclear power was a trigger for UFO activity and cryptid sightings? That's a good question.
It could well have been, couldn't it? I mean, it's another leap in our sort of evolutionary process into the advent of nuclear power. If this intelligence is as smart as we think it is, then it'll know the capabilities of that advancement in the wrong hands. And let's face it, if it's in our hands, it's in the wrong hands, because what do? if we find a resource, we just absolutely deplete it till it's gone, and that's the nature of us as humans. We're not that much to be proud of, have we?
A question from Jack SH.
Jack?
Yeah, welcome to the stream, Jack. Right, what does Paul make of the ringing in the ears experienced last week on the cliffs?
I'm glad you've said that, Jack. And I were going to come to Jack. Jack and his wife Barbara came and they spent 3 days in the area, and I spent 2 days. Myself and Mary spent 2 days with them, and then in the evenings we were up on the cliff tops, and I think it were on the second evening, Barbara experienced a very high-pitched ringing, probably in her right ear, but we've only got a right and a left, so I may have got that wrong, but we couldn't hear it. But that's not unusual. I've experienced that myself, and numerous people who've been on cliff tops have experienced it. And jumping back a few months, Alec, the American guy, he had that experience when he was walking back along the cliff tops late in the night, where he heard the high-pitched ringing in his ear and then stopped, stepped backwards, and it went away, stepped forwards, and it was there. Don't know what's producing it. I don't know whether it's actually aimed at the person or they're just caught in the particular zone. It's hard to say. There was two things happened during Jack and Barbara's visit, and Barbara's the only person to have took note and experienced it, and she heard whispering at the side of her. Now, you know, I've known Jack and Barbara quite a few years and never heard her come out with anything like that before. Nothing remotely paranormal. So I've no reason to disbelieve her. You know, I mean, I'm the one that's holding my hand up and saying I walked through a wood early one morning in 2017 and I heard robotic voices. So nobody has to believe me. You know, I could be just making it up, but I don't think Barbara were making it up. And it's par for the course. It's the strangeness that sort of fits with the area. It doesn't all have to be sort of glowing lights and, you know, cryptid type reports. You can get these other strange, quirky anomalies. I don't know what to make of it, Jack, if I'm being truthful, but I don't know whether saying I'm glad you experienced something is the right thing to say, but I think the bulk of the people that are coming up there are hoping that they will see or experience something. So, yeah, all good.
Yeah, well, ringing in the ears. Yeah, ringing in the ears. I mean, it all harks back to what you was talking about earlier, frequencies and ultrasonic sound frequencies, and you know, the type of frequencies only bats seem to hear. You know, it's probably something that we can pick up on some of these frequencies.
It really is high pitched. I've heard it a few times, and anybody who's heard the little tiny mouse, the shrew, and you can hear them making that really high pitched shrill sound. It's like that constant. It's just, but probably sharper, and yeah, it's strange and no explanation for it because it actually does switch off. You know, it's gone. When I were up there, when I heard it last, I was with Steve Ashbridge's partner, Kelly, and she heard it. I could hear it. Kelly couldn't. Steve couldn't. And she'd ended up with her hands over her ears, and she said, "We're going to have to go. I can't stand it." Then it just stopped.
So, a question from me then, Paul. Is it something everybody hears at the same time? Is it something that somebody just hears in their head? Is it something that could be recorded, in other words?
I think it could be recorded, perhaps. I mean, it were definitely directional if we're going to use Alec as an example, because he stepped into it and it was there, and when he stepped back it was gone, and he stepped forward it was there. But he could only hear it in his right ear. That's a good question, Les. So is it audible? Is it just doing something, you know, with his head? Well, I don't know what's happened to your camera, Les, but you've gone. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm still here. You carry on, Paul. We're still on vision, yeah.
You're right. Okay. So I don't know. All I know is it's a definite phenomena that's there, and it's been reported and spoken about by other people, not just the people surrounding me. I've had people email me and said that they've been up there and experienced strange sounds. So it's nothing new. We've had similar things in Danes Dyke as well. So really strange.
Well, I suppose that's a good time to put the question out there to everybody in the chat if they've experienced these sounds, these frequencies in their ears when they've been specifically up to Bempton. I mean, that's the area that we're really interested in. Yeah, right. I can see where my camera's gone, Paul.
Yeah, you could just put that back, Les. And I'm just looking at floor.
Yeah, it's got excited. I think.
There's a question. Conscientious objector. Paul, do you think Nick Pope can be trusted? Well, from my own experience, I've never had nothing but good experiences talking to Nick Pope. I've sent him bits of information and asked him questions, and he's always been fair with me. And I can only treat as I find. And a lot of people that I've sort of dealt with within subject are absolutely brilliant. So myself, I don't have a problem at all, And what's the books? Open Skies, Closed Minds. He's written a few books. I mean, at least he put himself out there and got the word about the subject out. If you hear him talking on the news or on some kind of radio show, you don't hear him talking in vastly derogative terms about people or the subject. So maybe he sits on fence a bit. I think years ago I wanted to know which side of fence he were on, but at the end of the day, it's his choice. And while ever he's not sort of driving me into the ground or pulling me to bits, and he's not doing anything bad for the subject, particularly, I don't think I ain't got a problem. As well, I don't really get involved with other people's research. I know that there's people within the chat, there's people on social media, on the internet, who can tell you everything about every case, and they can go into details at witnesses and names. I can't. I just can't do that. These are proper historians when it comes to UFO research. All I know about is what I'm looking into, and that's why I think the Truth Proof books, and it sounds like a boast, are unique, because they're just full of original material. It's not rehashed. It's not other people's material. Other people might want to do that to my books one day. And let them get on with it. If they want to find more information, if they want to look at Wilsthorpe and dig deeper and find more, feel free. Go for it.
Yeah, and for those listening on audio only, where can people pick up the books from, Paul?
Well, the books are on Amazon, but I would sooner people contact me at the Truth Proof website. So it's truthproof.co.uk. Say this again, Paul. It's truthproof.uk.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and why did I say that? Well, anyway, there you go.
Yeah.
And there's UFO reports on it. There's cryptid reports on the website. Please feel free, if you've got something and you want to tell us in confidence, you want your name omitting or your actual specific location altering slightly, but as long as we've got an area, we'll go with it. We're all about protecting people's anonymity if that's what they require. And just go for it.
Tim Brennan. Welcome to the show, Tim. Paul, do you think the silver pit factors in all of this? The silver pit.
It could do. It's amazing. And what people might not realise is just off Flamborough and Bempton. When we say just off, it's I don't know, it's a number of miles off. It's not like 100 yards off. But there's one of the biggest. It's debatable what it is, whether it's an impact crater. I think so. I think some people doing a geological survey for oil or something discovered it a few years ago, and they call it the Silver Pit Crater. There's evidence of like what could be potentially the biggest impact crater or one of them in the world, or it could be some geological fault where everything's just collapsed in on itself. But it could be. I mean, it is interesting that we've got all these strange and quirky anomalies around this coastline, things that little known thing, but it's there if people want to research it. The Silver Pit Crater, just off Flamborough and Bempton, the magnetic anomalies. You know what I mean? We've got the Bempton Fault. So we've got all these magnetic type disturbances around these areas of high strangeness, and that's not nothing new. That lots of areas around the world have magnetic anomalies and magnetic disturbance associated with the particular location, and it just happens to be a location where things of high strangeness occur.
Yeah. And somebody, and I'm sure most people will put me right on this, but I was watching a documentary lately, and it was to do with Doggerland.
Yeah,
Okay, so Doggerland actually, England actually
it was a
was
land
full
bridge.
land, yeah, a land bridge right up to the west. Is it the west side of the European coast? There was it Norway? Oh,
So
uh,
basically,
yes.
it was land, and not that in the evolutionary
Now,
scale. It wasn't that long
I
ago.
yeah. So my question is, where did the land finish? Did it finish at Flamborough? Because I know not all of the UK was joined up in Doggerland. Where did it finish? Did it finish at the Humber?
I don't know, and I know Tim Brennan is in the chat, and Tim might actually know because he did a bit of research on the actual name. Because me and Tim were interested why it had why it went by the name of Doggerland, and we can rule out anything to do with cryptids. By the way, Tim managed to fathom it, but it's an interesting place, and trawlermen often pull up mammoth bones,
Yeah,
uh,
that's right.
and
Yeah.
all sorts of evidence that it were land, and there were big animals sort of roaming that area of land. So and I think there's plans, to make it land again. And
Really?
it's not that deep. Yes, seriously. I think there's plans afoot to make it. Obviously, I'm not some kind of structural expert, but I would imagine it'll involve sinking columns deep into the seabed. But it's not that deep. That area of
Mm,
sea is not that deep, and it's out in the
mm.
middle of the ocean.
I guess what I was trying to come round to in a sort of way was the silver pit. Was it in the Doggerlands?
No, I don't think it is, and I'm just looking at Blue Shift and Rob, and he's linking Doggerland to dogging, and I think that's something else that you know.
Yeah, that's not this type of
I
stream,
don't think we're
guys.
on with that subject, mate, but
Yeah.
you're probably not on the wrong page with some of the things that happen in these remote locations, but that's
Even
not paranormal.
even though I don't know exactly what he's talking about, Paul.
No, and I
So
don't. I'm just sort of
okay,
guessing.
yeah. Okay, right. I'm just gonna let's have a look. I missed a question out somewhere. I'm just gonna find it.
Yeah, and
Uh,
Tim's brought a great thing up in the chat, which I should have highlighted. Uh, Tim Brennan has got a page on our website, or maybe a few pages now, where he's done some extensive work on Flixton Star Car and all the strange
yeah,
artifacts that were found, and I think he'll be doing work regarding Doggerland and the Silver Pit Crater and others, adding to it. And we sort of value Tim's input, and thank you very much, Tim. So I should have mentioned it. You had to highlight it in a question.
yeah. Thanks, Tim. Uh, Space Cadet Lottie is asking, have you used copper dowsing rods to pick up on the natural earth energy stroke ley lines?
I've used them once, but never around that area. Myself and Mary, my wife, we went to the burial mound of Willie Howe, which is just outside of Burton Fleming. And I don't think they were copper, they were steel rods. I'll tell you what it was. It was a music stand of my daughter's. Can you picture the curved? And I cut them and I made 4 dowsing rods. But I can tell you, I don't know about the ley lines, but they definitely work. It was the first time we put them into copper tubes, and these things turned in. No influence from us. We staked it, and it's like an hot cross bun, the burial mound of Willie Howe. And one of them, we believe, and I spoke to, once again, Tim Brennan about this, we believe one of those lines runs to the Rudston monolith.
Hmm.
And there's a suggestion that there's a ley line running from the Rudston monolith through Willie Howe and up onto Stakston Wold. And I'm not saying it's correct, but ley lines is a subject that Tim's sort of, I wouldn't say heavily involved in, but very, very interested in.
Yeah, and just to continue with that, Wandering the North is saying, is Paul aware of any ley lines that would connect? I'll get this right. Aware of any ley lines in the area? Would they connect with Bull Street in Liverpool? So I don't know what the link is
I
there.
don't know, but obviously, if you've got information or knowledge of ley lines and knowledge of that, I'd be willing to. Well, I'd love to speak to you. Not willing to speak to you because it's you know, I mean, even if you don't subscribe to the notion of ley lines, it doesn't mean I'm right. You know, I don't know enough about them, so I'll explore all avenues, just like we've been doing with Peter with the electrical equipment, just like I did with the watches on the cliff top. We got the time experiments and burying the watches at 400 paces, two watches in each container, just to see what would happen over a long period of time. We've got to try everything.
Yeah. Question from Blue Shift. Any time dilation experiments at Bempton, Paul? Any results? I know you did some watch experiments.
Well, yeah, I suppose that's maybe what he's aiming at. And
yes.
I don't have information in front of me, and it's quite a few years ago now. I think.
So, for the people who don't know, could you give us a brief?
Yeah, it has to be brief because it's that long since. I got. First of all, I started with 6 analog quartz watches. Set them all, put new batteries in them, and set them all at the correct time. We call it all at 12 o'clock. Got plastic bags. Put 2 watches in a plastic bag, and each of those 2 into a sealed container. Buried them on the cliff tops, very shallow. There's where the fence posts are. I knew where they were. Well, I didn't actually. My wife went with me first time, and luckily she did because I couldn't find them. So it shows my detective skills, doesn't it? And so we buried them at 400 paces between, roughly, each watch. We increased it, and we added another box, so there were 8 watches buried up there. And then two or three times, mainly 2 times a week, I'd go up onto the cliff tops, cause a bit of suspicion by the people around, should we say, the bird watchers and that, and because they didn't know what I was doing, because I'd wander up there and have a little trowel with me, and I'd take this grass sod off, and I'd take them out, and I don't know, that one had it's at 10 past 3, so I know that 400 paces and a little bit of jiggling about, the next one should say 20 past 3, and so on. And I did that for quite a while, and then one particular day I found two watches. And I think they'd lost about. They were still going, but each watch in the box had lost an equal amount of time. All the others were reading the correct time, but there were 2. Don't know what it means, and I've got all the times and everything, so we could go into this in detail, you know, next week or week after. It'll not take that long to talk about, but I can give you the times. Because you can guarantee, if I say that each one had lost an hour and 10 minutes and it's an hour and 5 minutes, somebody will jump on you and say you've got it wrong. Yeah. And I can't remember off the top of my head.
The first thing that strikes to my mind, Paul, would be to say to you, you know, if you had these watches in the box and everything still, I guess you have.
No, I've left them up there.
You've left them up there, yeah.
Yeah.
Is to kind of repeat the experiment.
It might be something to do. It might be worth doing. That it would be something to do. I don't know what people will find if you know, in a 50 years time, if they find a little grass sod and they dig it up and there's a plastic box where you're watching it and a little note, because I put a note in it saying if you found this, this is the time experiments, you know.
Yeah.
So
I mean that's interesting in itself, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a good question from Blue Shift. Right, a question from Andy B. Welcome to the show, Andy. Do you think that UFOs are from within Earth or elsewhere or both? Now, I know we've covered this.
Here.
Yeah.
You know, whatever it is we're dealing with, once again, we're only dealing with people's opinions, and mine is that it's already here. You know, and we touched on this with Steve Mearer last week, and I think Steve's of the same opinion. We know we get these great minds that calculate how many light years away the nearest possible habitable planet is, and the impossibilities of it travelling here, and all that. And which sort of rules out us believers, us experiencers. It sort of just stamps on our argument, but it doesn't because they're already here. If people are seeing these things in such numbers all over the world, then this phenomena must be here. It must have the ability to render itself invisible, or it must just be in another sphere of existence. And the easiest way I could put it is if we're on Radio 1, just a little tweak of the dial, and they're on Radio 2. I'm not a scientist, am I? I'm just saying that the phenomena's here. The phenomena that we're observing up on those cliff tops and along the eastern North Yorkshire coast and probably all around UK, doesn't fly in from anywhere. You know, I mean, Chris Turner will tell you that. Steve Ashbridge, anybody who's been up there and seen these things will tell you. They don't fly from anywhere. They switch on.
Yeah.
They're there. And then they go. And they'll switch on and be 1, and then there might be 3, 4, and 5. They'll disappear. And then suddenly they're 10 mile down coast in same formation. And either they're that fast that they've moved and we can't see them move, or they're jumping in and out of our reality. I don't know what the answer is. I just don't.
Okay, let's have a look. The question from Rupert M. Welcome to the show, Rupert.
Looking is, I know that I saw them watches the other day here.
But anyway. Yeah. Is Paul aware of any other areas in the UK that have multi-phenomena? So I guess really the question is the phenomena around the UK as much as what you're experiencing in this part of Yorkshire?
Yeah. I think there are other areas. I mean, I don't think that people realise the extent of what was happening here until I started highlighting it. It's the multi-phenomena events that you put together and you realise it's happening at the same time. You open an old issue of the Bridlington Free Press, for example, or Scarborough Evening News, and if you found one with a UFO sighting, you might find like a week before or 2 weeks before there's been a big cat sighting. Both are unusual. Both are highly unusual. Do you know what I'm? And the weather seems to play a part in it as well. A lot of times when things are seen, they're in really, really extreme weather conditions. I don't know if I touched other week on, or a few weeks ago, on 1947. I found myself in archive looking at 1947 in the UK, particularly around our area, and we've got one of the hottest summers on record. Before summer, we'd got one of the coldest winters on record, and you'd got the paper flagged up mystery flares seen off Bridlington and Flamborough, and then the next thing you've got body found floating in water. All right, we know people unfortunately drowned or swimming at sea and die, but then just a few bit further down the coast, I'll give you an example. In February, it was extreme weather, and on the 15th of March, there were mystery flares seen. On the 15th of March, there was a woman's body found in the water. Now, does that mean that that's connected to it? Obviously not. 4 days later, at Silex Bay in Flamborough, all in close proximity, they found a bullock at the bottom of the cliffs. Could have fell over. Half a mile down the coast, they found another one at the bottom of the cliffs. Now, I've gone through these archives from 1930s. That's the only time I've ever found sort of quirkiness where there's been cattle over the cliffs. In the closest time frame, on 26th of June, and I've got this bit of paper in front of me, they had 82 hours of sunshine in 7 days. So you've got the quirky weather anomalies. Now, when you go to August, at Hornsey, there was a 17-year-old girl seen by her parents paddling on the beach, vanished. Do you know? I've got the names and things, even though it's 1947. I'm not gonna put it down. Do you know what I mean? On the 23rd, they found a body. The 12th, the girl vanished. On the 23rd, they found a body. A fishing cobble found the body of a woman, which weren't that girl. On the 23rd of August, jumping back to 17th of August, 2 men vanished from a fishing boat. Never seen again. This is all in 1947. On the 20th of August, they found a man's body on the beach. They assumed that they didn't know what he died of, but he was just dead on the beach. Do you know all sorts of quirky things in 1947? Not forced to be attributed to unexplained phenomena, but it kind of makes, when you've got a sort of concentration of things like that happening, and like I've said many times, this isn't Midsummer Murders. This is sort of a tiny fishing town. You know, we're sticking with 23rd of August again, and I'm sorry if this sounds a bit sad, but they found a baby girl's body floating in the water. We've done 23rd of August already, but I've just and they never found identity of the baby girl. All this is in those papers. Too late to do any real digging now and decipher what was happening. Do you know what I mean? But very strange. And it's 1947, and those cases are just ones I'm looking at, and I'll work more and more and more, and I'll find myself in a few different archives, and see what else I can find to put round them. And even though it's 1947, I'm still not going to say names of these people. I think we've got to have a bit of respect, you know. It's because it's not entertainment. That's somebody's life.
Yeah, sure. Jeremy Brooks is asking, hi Paul, Les, would you be interested in organising a mass vigil on the cliffs at Bempton? Now, I know some things are happening up there by one of our friends. I don't know if you're at liberty to say anything about that, Paul.
Well, there is talk of doing a skywatch up there, but unfortunately, you know, you've got the seabird colony up there, and the RSPB, the Royal Society for the Protection of Birds, oversee all that. So I'm not really in a position to organise a mass skywatch. And I go up there all the time. There's no locks on it. It's public land. It's part of the Cleveland Way. So yeah. Anybody can go up there. So in theory, I suppose, if a group of people just met up there, but I don't think I'd want to organise it and put it together. There'd be insurances and things like that. What if somebody fell over the cliffs? What if somebody got lost? Do you know what? I know they're all what ifs, but I don't think I'd want my name to it. I think I'd go. I'd probably find myself meeting up with people, but as regards organising mass skywatches, no, I don't think so.
Okay, thanks for that, Paul. Ian Anderson. It's a good question, this one, because I've not heard you mention it. But the question is, have you ever seen black triangular craft? No, 1998. I've got loads of reports from 1998. Well, the last book I've called the 1990s, the decade of the triangles. That's one of the chapters, and for some reason, lots of triangular craft around Eastern North Yorkshire, but all around the world, I think. These things were seen, but no, I haven't. No, it's a great question, and I wish I had. Stargazer Eternal 1 is asking, if you could acquire one piece of equipment to help with your research, what would it be? Or have you, a piece of equipment, or have you got everything?
No, I haven't. I mean, we're using that little Psionics, which is a brilliant piece of kit. I mean, you've had a bit of limited use of it, Les, and you can see what it can do. Got a thermal camera. Yeah, you know, we're going out onto the cliff tops. We've not got loads of money, but we're going out onto them cliff tops, and that bag, I'm saying this, I'll be getting mugged. It must have 7 or 8 grand in it. You know, and that's nothing. That's absolutely nothing. Would I want a thermal camera costing £25,000? I'd love one. A night vision camera and enough battery power to just leave it running and press record. Yeah, I'd love that. But I think if I could have one piece of kit to do this job and do it efficiently, it would be a piece of land up there somewhere along that coastline. I don't have to own it, but a piece of land. Yeah. Anybody that's got a piece of land overlooking the sea that would be willing to, and once again, I think you've just heard me in previous questions, I won't be taking a thoroughfare of people up there, but a group of people who could actively research the area and without having to walk miles and stand in adverse conditions, just create a little bit of shelter for yourself as well, because it's absolutely vile in the winter. I mean, Bob Brown will tell you that. He spends a lot of time up there with me, and when wind's blowing off that North Sea, when it's minus, you can sort of double those numbers. It's absolutely horrendous. So a piece of land.
Yeah, a piece of land. Yeah, with a big viewing platform.
Well,
just protected from the elements.
A bit of shelter.
Yeah. Okay then. Well, you never know, Paul. Somebody might come in the chat and just offer you that very thing.
Yeah, I doubt
Okay. We've got some great questions coming in tonight, guys.
I've just one here. I'm just looking at now. Lee James Blunt. Have you ever spoken to the people who live at the lighthouse at Flamborough regarding sightings? I've got a folder from the former lighthouse keeper of Flamborough Lighthouse, and he's keen to stress this guy. He was a keeper, meaning it weren't automated when he was there, and it's not packed, but I've got quite a few sightings from him while he was a keeper at Flamborough. One of them is when they're on the I don't know what they call it, the gallery, the rail that you can walk around on the outside, and he stood looking out in the night, and obviously the beam's sweeping round, and he can see looking down the coast towards Bempton, 2 lights coming towards him, and he shouts his mate who's in the lighthouse as well, and they come out and they watch this thing slowly travelling up the cliffs, along the cliffs, should I say. And when it gets with the lighthouse, because they can only see 2 lights, the beam lit it up, and it was between the lighthouse and the cliffs. So and what's the distance there, would you say? I mean, anybody who knows it, what is it, 400 yards from the lighthouse to the front of the cliffs, edge of the cliffs? So, and it's in the middle or thereabouts, and the beam caught it in, and he said it looked like a submarine with 2 big lights in the middle, no wings, just a tube. They were black, and it just carried on going. Did he report it? No. Why? Because of the stigma attached to the subject, which is a shame, really. He'd seen spheres of light above the lighthouse, big orange spheres of light above the lighthouse. As part of his job, he was a relief lighthouse man, and he ended up going to Orfordness, which is, again, Rendlesham Forest. So I passed a bit of information on to John Hanson about this guy, because Brenda Butler, who's a good friend, and I hope you're on the mend if you're listening to this, Brenda, the more power to you. She's one of the sort of principal investigators of the Rendlesham Forest incident, and should be spoke about more, really. And anybody who doesn't know about the Rendlesham Forest incident, research it, because it is interesting. Now, she said that she'd seen little periscopes coming up around the lighthouse area and things. And I'm not saying people didn't believe her, but what the lighthouse keeper told me is when they went out to Orfordness, their job was to stay on the lighthouse and not walk around. And they did one day. Said, and there was a little tube sticking up, and they looked down it. He says, and they'd only looked down it for 10-15 minutes. The military personnel were all around them. It kind of validates what Brenda was saying, do you know? So in a roundabout way. So we've jumped from Flamborough, we've gone to Orfordness, but yeah, this guy, healthy career, and he as a lighthouse keeper, quite distinguished. He'd been there quite a lot of years, and I think we've got about 4 reports in this little bit of a folder that he's given me. And Les has just dropped something. Yeah, that's good. So I'll have a look. I hope you haven't broke it. I hope it weren't mine. It won't be mine, I don't think, because I think I've got half of Les's recording studio in this room.
Right, okay, we've got a question. Let's have a look. See if we can... Yeah, drop me tablet, folks.
Is it working still?
It's still working.
Okay.
Right then, let's have a look. Let's have a look. Now everything has gone to pot here.
Well, it will do. They're not meant to be dropped.
Okay. Let's have a look. Well, I've got to ask a question, Paul, and I've seen quite a few questions on this in some of the YouTube comments. How is the film Wolflands coming on?
Well, it's coming on, Les, isn't it? We can elaborate a little bit. We thought we were going to go a bit further up the coast, maybe Monday, Tuesday time, to interview someone, and it's gone silent. If you are listening to this, you know we still want to do the interview. But if it doesn't come off, we've still got more than enough information to complete the film. It would have just added a little bit more flavour to what we're filming. I think it's coming on brilliant. It's slow, but that's no reflection on Les or myself. I think COVID held us up immensely, but we need to stress the amount of help that we're actually getting with Wolfland is incredible. You know, we've got input from Tim Brennan, which is invaluable, and his partner Mel, who's an incredible artist, is contributing some artwork that'll be incorporated in film, and we're kind of blessed. We've got brilliant music from Mick Park, and the vocals from my own daughter Jessica, and I hope Jess is listening, and Noah, my grandson, so I know her. And yeah, it's all coming together. I mean, I'm going on Saturday morning into my daughter's recording studio, and we've got a lot of linking words and things that are going to tie the stories together. And I'll be recording them, and my voice doesn't quite sound right unless you might not think it sounds right at any time, but I don't think it sounds right just on its own. I think I've got to be walking and saying things. So we've got another voiceover to do some of the other parts. And when these are put together, and Les has worked his magic on it, we shall be in a position. I mean, we did give ourselves a kind of time span, Les, a few days ago. I don't know whether you want to tell anybody.
I'd rather not at the moment. It's
Okay.
kind of fluid, isn't it? And
Yeah,
yeah.
you know, we give a time span, we'd probably be wrong by about a year, people. But let's just say that we are working on it pretty much constantly. I mean, I've been working on this dialogue today, and we're all over the place. We're taking pictures of things relating to the subject matter. And it's carved stone. We're travelling miles and miles to get these images, and sometimes it's just for one image to slot in during the dialogue that's taking you from one part of the film to the other. But I hope that's going to show, and I hope it's going to be worth it. I hope it's not just all hype from myself and Les. But at the end of the day, the witnesses, they're the most important things. And what have we got with the witnesses from Wolflands? Absolutely unique first-hand accounts that have never been heard before. And that's something in itself. It's not like watching a documentary and listening to one witness droning on for an hour. How many we got, Les? I mean, is there 6, 7?
Yeah, we've got a few.
There's quite a few, and we're filming again on Tuesday. And it's a guy we've already filmed, but now we want some nighttime footage from him. So we're blessed because we've got these people that are also investing their time. And why are they investing their time in us? Because we're portraying them, I think, and I hope we are, in a serious light. There's no ridicule factor. They'll not watch that film and say, you know, you've made me a laughing stock of me. You've turned everything I've said as a joke. Never.
And I've just got to bring you back to Jessica. So Jessica's music is at the top of the stream. So some of the links to hear some more of Jessica's music. That's Jessica and Nick, her husband. They've got the recording studio, as Paul had said, and they're doing a lot of recordings for the Wolflands film. So that's all good in my eyes.
It is. You know, we're really lucky. I mean,
along with Mick Park, of course.
Along with Mick Park, and I mean, I think I don't even have to say out about Mick Park. Just Google his name. The guy's incredibly talented. So yeah, there we go.
Okay, well, I'll rattle through some of these questions, and we've got quite a lot. Joey Hayes is asking, any opinions on the Montauk projects, Long Island, New York in the 1980s?
I don't have enough knowledge of it. I'm sorry. I know it involved strange cryptids or things like that, but no, I think I've said earlier, I don't really get involved in other people's work. Maybe I should.
Yeah. Robert Hilton, any further Hull sightings recently? I did send Paul some photos of the silver UFO over Hull, and that was from Robert Hilton. Yeah,
we haven't had anything just recently. No, I'm sorry to say. But that's how it is. It goes in waves, doesn't it? You'll find that if we do get one report, we tend to get 2 or 3. You know, I mean, there was a sighting from a farmer in another part of the country. I don't know if I spoke about it the other week, where he saw that column of light just suddenly appear in the field that he'd been ploughing, and he'd used a thermal camera. Said there was nothing else in field, you know. But I dare say if I were in that area where this guy lives, and we did a bit of digging, there'd be other things that had been seen. But you can't be everywhere, can you?
As an account from Laura Lum, it's not so much a question as an account, Paul. My stepfather is an angler, and a couple of his mates reported seeing a bright ball of light appear over the water on the River Medway one night when they were fishing. So lots of reports like that in a similar interval.
Yeah, there are, and it's not dissimilar to what we're reporting at Bempton, and it's not dissimilar to what's been reported all around country. So it kind of makes you think. I mean, Steve Meara touched on the fact that some of it could be earth gases and other things, and I'm not saying that's what it was, but because, you know, it could be the real deal. It'd be interesting if other things were seen in that area, or if is it your father or your father-in-law wanted to look into that. But if he's like the vast majority of people, if he's like the anglers up at along East and North Yorkshire coast, they're too busy catching fish to see these things, and it's almost wow, that's interesting, isn't it? And now let's just carry on fishing. It's a strange one.
she also adds, he himself has also had many strange experiences around the area. So, I mean, this alludes to people who attune to these things, doesn't it, Paul, really?
Yeah.
Because you could be in a boat with 6 other people and there's only one who experiences anything.
Yeah. I'm just looking there, and we've got a guy, Mark Datter. He says, totally skipped my question about the fighter jets that went down in the sea off the East Coast. Well, I didn't see it question, and I don't think Deborah would have skipped it intentionally. But it's true to say that there are a lot of fighter jets that have gone down off East Coast, and I have written about them. But I don't know what the question was.
No, I can't see it on here, Paul.
Any new big cat sightings in the area recently, Jeremy Brooks? No. But I'll tell you what were interesting. I were up on the cliff tops with Amanda Eames. I don't know what day it was. What are we today? Thursday, we'll say Monday. And an animal passed on the cliff path. Amanda thinks it were a fox, and that's good enough for me because she got a better view of it than I did. It went further up the cliffs, and once again, Staple Nuke, we'd got his thermal cameras on it, and it were hunting gannets. And literally going down the cliffs, and you could see the gannets flying off. Brilliant. I mean, we could only see it through the thermal cameras, but there again, once again, somebody says, what bit of kit would you want? It would have been brilliant to have had the most incredible camera to actually film that and see it going about its business with some kind of clarity. And we found dead gannets on the way back, beat the heads and wings, so it were taking fully grown birds. So I wonder how many people know that the foxes are actively taking. It's a fairly big bird, is a gannet. I think they say its wingspan's about 5 foot. So you know, but they're quite capable of taking them. They don't weigh much, but on edge of a cliff, I think if it wanted to just put up a bit of a fight, it's precarious for a fox.
I would have thought so.
Fox. I'm not saying a big cat. Amanda's pretty adamant that it were a fox, so that's good enough.
Laura Lum is asking, hi Paul, did you manage to test the soil sample from the triangle in the pea crop?
No, I've still got it. It's in a filing cabinet in garden. And I think I spoke about that to, I think it might have been Steve Meara years ago, and he suggested that, and I haven't done. No.
Okay.
We did have a Geiger counter and put that over it as well. I've sent Geiger counter to Chris. He's got more use for it at the moment, Chris Turner, but there were no strange readings. But I know what you're on about, actually analysing the soil, and we didn't, or I didn't.
Okay. Alison Buttle, going back to Plastic Man, the one with the weird bicycle. Did you see his eyes through the sunglasses?
No. They were dark, full wraparound sunglasses, and I didn't see his eyes. And it were hard to estimate his age as well, because there were no wrinkles on him. Honestly, he was the texture of Spam. You know, the sort of horrible meat. It's not meat, is it? I don't know what it is.
No. Jane Louise Bowery is asking, Paul, do you think the Action Man was an alien?
It's possible. I don't know. I really don't know what he was about, and the actual the terminology, bringing down the light. And you know, when I looked into that, and they say Lucifer is the bringer of light, you know, and or the light bringer, and he's telling me I'm bringing down the light. I don't know whether he's calling me devil. You know, it's.
Here's a great question from Andy B. Did he have an accent?
No, not that I noticed. No. And that's a good question, because I've never really thought about that. But I would have noticed it, wouldn't I? You know, if it had been a Liverpudlian or you know,
or a Wessie or whatever. Geordie. Yeah, you want Geordie then?
No.
Lee James Blunt. Interestingly, there was a UFO sighting in Rickle, he means, yeah, in 2017.
Really? Oh, that I didn't know that. And
so that's interesting.
Yeah, it's a little village in North Yorkshire, Rickle.
Yeah, Rickle, isn't it? R-I-C-A-L. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Blue Shift. Right then, any more time dilation experiments at Bempton? Any results? And is Paul's home still active? There's a couple of questions there. And if so, has he tried putting an iron horseshoe in the area, as these entities do not like iron.
Good point. And another one, we sort of know about the iron, and funnily enough, we'll jump to our home in a moment, but there's an iron spike in the field where we were finding the animals in 2017. I'd found iron spikes driven into the field. So I don't mean that the farmers know there's something really weird, but even if they just call it superstition, it's superstition enough to drive iron spikes into the field. I'd found them. But our house, it's more active for Bob Brown, because I think I've told people that I converted this house in about 2011 to 2012 into 3 flats, because it's a huge house, and Bob's in the top flat. And he says to me about 2 weeks ago, he sat in this reclining chair looking at his TV on the opposite wall, and there's a mirror on the wall opposite him as well. Can't see himself in the mirror, he can only, because he's higher. But while he's watching TV quietly in the evening, he claims that an alien's head appeared in the mirror behind him. So, and that's exactly, and what he also said was, the mirror were black, everything were black. He said I just saw it appear. And I mean, anecdotal evidence, or is it evidence? And it's just somebody's words. Is Bob making it up? I don't think he is. I've known Bob a long time. He don't come out with loads of things like this, and it's kind of rattled him. And he's come out with a few things recently about what's happened in that particular room. I've seen a shadow pass in front of him, a dark shadow, and guess what? That room is where I laid when the spindles turned white looking onto the landing, because it used to be a bedroom years and years ago. So is it the house that's active, or is it the little bit of area that's active? Is it the people within the house that sort of evoke or ignite something? I don't know. I don't know mechanics involved in any of this. All I know is that there are things happening.
Okay. Let's have a look. Deborah's asking, can you ask Tim Brennan's questions? He's posted it 3 times. I don't know which one we've missed out, Deborah.
Right. It's...
Okay, so let's have a look then. Nigel Logan. I'll go with this one,
Nigel.
Paul. Yeah.
There's an interesting guy.
Do you think, Paul, that you should be hiding some of your good proof of UFOs somewhere away from your home, just in case you get a call in from Men in Black?
Well,
and he's not joking, he said.
It's interesting what you say, Nigel. You know, I've got some footage of these lights over the sea that I've not shown anybody. I don't know what I'm saving it for, but I have got some, and I'm hoping to get some more this coming year. We're ever hopeful. And let's forget about the UFOs for a moment. There's people told me stuff, like the Coast Guard, and a few people within the military, and police officers, and that information I've not got on my computer, and it's in paper form, and I know where it is. It could be on computer, but you just don't know. And my reasoning is it's not because it's that highly sensitive, it's that groundbreaking. I don't want to compromise anybody. I don't want somebody who's telling me something in good faith and trusting me to be compromised by me being reckless and losing information or getting your computer hacked. It hasn't happened, but I don't want it to happen. So anybody that were clever enough to get into a computer wouldn't find that kind of stuff. They can't find that information, because there's a couple of bits that's really sensitive, and I've got something about. All I'll say, I've got something that's potentially explosive about a hull trawler. And it's one of the most sensitive trawler disasters this country's ever seen or ever experienced. And you'll know which trawler it is, Les. Mm-hmm. And I'm not, I'm not running with that information. I've got it, and it's brilliant, but I'm not doing anything with it. I will do one day, but then people won't be around who've told me it.
Yeah,
you know, because they're elderly now.
Yeah.
So that's kind of thing. Anyway, I'm a bit deep that, so sorry, people.
Okay, then we're getting through quite a few questions today, and It's getting rather warm in this room I'm in, Paul. I don't know where it
Yeah,
is,
warm
where
here.
you are.
Warm here. I think I need a
Yeah,
beer.
need a beer time. It could be coming up shortly. The conscientious objector. Paul, do you think Nick Pope can be trusted? I know you touched on this earlier on in the
Yeah,
programme.
well, who can say? Can Paul Sinclair be trusted? Am I talking a load of rubbish? I've wrote Night People, a collection of my experiences from childhood to present day. Am I just a plausible liar? Who can say? I feel I'm telling the truth best I can. So if I jump to Nick Pope and I say my dealings with Nick Pope have never been anything but good, I've sent him information or asked questions about a few aircraft that I've been interested in, and I've received information back from him that's been interesting, should I say, and he's not dodged it, and I've not put his name to anything. Once again, it's nothing groundbreaking or earth-shattering, but the guy's been nothing but decent with me, and I treat people as I find them. I'm not all about just pulling somebody to bits because somebody else doesn't like them. So if you're my friend, you've got to adhere to these rules. And I won't do that. As far as I'm concerned, I haven't got an axe to grind with him or anybody really.
Okay, let's have a look. Tim Brennan is in capital letters, is saying Paul, the shaman of Doggerland.
Right.
So that's when we're talking about Doggerland.
Yes.
The shaman of Doggerland.
The shaman. Well, the shaman is something that I know that myself, Tim, Les, we've touched on, because as I spoke about before, Tim's got some work that he's done and put onto Truth Proof website about the shaman and the possibility that these ancient ritualistic practices are still echoing out and being seen and exercised today. Could the sightings of the Flixton werewolf be remnants of those ancient times when the shaman, or so the archaeologists believe, due to the artifacts that they've found, that the people of Flixton, the early people of Flixton Starcar, 8,000 to 11,000 years ago, were practicing ritualistic magic and animal sacrifice, and probably trying to transform into the beast. Now, this practice goes on today in other parts of the world, perhaps even in this country, in some deep, dark places. Now, who's to say that if they'd tapped into something all those years ago, that the people who are claiming to see this werewolf type creature that's never been caught on camera, that seems so elusive that it's cropped up for decades and decades, even hundreds of years. I've got reports going back to the 1930s. I spoke to a guy the other week who knows some of the witnesses, really early witnesses, and as Les knows, I'm hoping to get more stories from this old resident of Flixton. But who's to say that these things aren't echoes from the past? We don't know how these things work. Are these kind of holograms? Are they ghosts? The lady that saw the creature on the roundabout near the Spittal Inn in 2018, I think it was, coming home from York with her husband and her 2 young children. She's driving in the passenger car, driving down at 11 o'clock at night to the roundabout, which is next to the Spittal Inn, which was in 937 AD the refuge built to protect the travellers from the infestation of savage beasts. It's literally 50 yards away on this roundabout. She sees this creature, huge, semi-bipedal, we'll say, because it were crouched down, leant over, dog's head. She could see the full profile of its head. German Shepherd like, but huge, as big as a small pony or a donkey. Asked her husband to stop the car, lock the doors, go around the roundabout. I think they said they went down several times because we've filmed her, Les. But it 2 times she went roundabout, and there's nothing there. It's gone.
Yeah.
What are they seeing? I don't know.
Okay, let's move on. Ralph Winter is asking, Paul and Les, can you recall the first paranormal type books that you came across as boys? Is that something you can answer there, Paul?
No, not really. I can recall, and I'll just say it briefly because I know that you're talking about books here, Ralph, but all I recall is my dad waking me up to look at a sphere of light at Mextra when I was a little boy outside at Cooling Towers at Power Station. That was the first really bit of weirdness that I'd seen. I don't know how old I'd be. I could have been 4, I could have been 5, but but obviously it's not a book. No, not really. No. What about you, Les?
Well, the first book I'd read, which put the willies up me, was the famous most haunted house in England in Sussex,
All right.
The Borley Rectory, and that went through subsequent owners of the house who all experienced lots of different things. A paranormal investigator came along called Harry Price, who well, what can I say? Some people, when these people come in, they sometimes invent things, and he was being accused of inventing stories. So at first I thought, yeah, as a young lad, it was really, really interesting. And then, obviously, as I read further into it, and this Harry Price, paranormal investigator, came into the scene, then later on in years, people were accusing him of faking things, as they do. And
Okay.
but the story itself, the house is now burnt down in Sussex, and so nobody can actually go and see it. But there is Borley Church, which was right opposite there, which is still. And if you go look on YouTube at the church at Borley, people still go there and experience some strange things. So that was interesting.
Yeah. Do you think, Les? I do that certain people can probably experience strange things in these areas. They're more in tune with it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've just looked at on the chat there, and I see Deborah, who's doing our modding. She says Borley Rectory freaked me out as a young girl. You know.
That's right. And I'll just add a little addendum to that. Is that BBC TV went down. They'd put in recorders in the church because, as I say, the house had burnt down by this point. I think it was in the 1970s. So they had pretty high-tech equipment in there, and they were picking up all sorts. Now, you can actually find that video on YouTube.
Yeah.
It's really interesting if you're interested in that type of thing.
I'm
But
still
what I thought they got on tape was quite interesting.
And
So that brings us full circle, Paul. To the can you what constitutes as proof?
that's just what I was going to get at. Yeah, and obviously they've got audio evidence, is it?
Audio, yeah.
Audio.
I'm sure. Well, until a couple of years ago, that was on YouTube. So
You're always going to
go
get
search
somebody
for that
saying
one.
they faked it, and I'm not saying they have. It's just we're just primed for it, because we keep coming back to that phrase. It's not admissible in court. So it's basically it's just stamping on anything anybody sees or claims to have heard, and it's a shame really because the actual volume of unexplained reports is just immense. It must be the biggest collection of anecdotal evidence of anything in the world that goes back hundreds and hundreds of years in the form of oral folklore, in the form of paintings, in the form of carved stonework. It's there in the form of rock paintings. It's that's visual. It's not.
Well, I'm going to put a little question out here, and it's something I picked up on the internet, as you do, researching a lot. Is what do you think is the country what is reported the least UFOs?
The reported the least. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean you get reports
Would it
from
be somewhere like China, where there's a bit more.
yeah, you're getting there. Yeah, it's actually Japan where
Is
you
it?
will not find any reports, but I think there's one where it dates back like 300 years, where they've got like carvings on a wall or something, and but no reports of recent.
No. And what would they put that down to? Actual just suppression of getting the knowledge out there, or is it just the culture that basically they don't want to talk about it?
It's probably more a culture thing, I think, Paul.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
where are we at then, Les? Time wise, it looks like.
Well, we'll keep an eye on the clock, but I'll probably get through a couple here. Have you ever? Here's a good question. Before I come to that one, no, I'm going to go to Space Cadet Lottie, who was asking any recent reports of Dogman in Staithes near Whitby.
Oh, great question. Well, it is in view of the fact that it's not a recent report, and I won't go into big details about it, simply because we still might get a chance to film this guy, but very close to Staithes is where me and Les were hoping to go I think it Tuesday or Monday or Tuesday, Les, and we were going
One of
to
them, yeah.
we were going to interview and film a guy that has a report going back about 11 years in just a tiny woodland on edge of a village, and if we don't get the report, we will sort of talk about it in more detail. I'm just hoping that he sort of plucks up enough courage to share it.
Vidjit van Bosch, any further thoughts on Hunmanby?
There are loads of further thoughts on Hunmanby. I mean, this week, I don't switch off from these things, even if we're not talking about them. So I've contacted Hunmanby Church this week and got to speak to the vicar. He rang me yesterday, actually, because there was... If people have heard me talk about Hunmanby, they'll know that when they were clearing the land, they found the grave marker, which would have been about 2 foot high, maybe, and about, I don't know, 12 to 15 inch wide. The wooden grave with the signature of a little girl on it from the 1800s, we believe. And the witnesses, the guys at Hunmanby, attributed all the poltergeist activity, all the strange spookiness to this grave marker. So eventually they rang the undertakers, and they rang. This is where I'm at. They don't. It's unclear. They're not sure if they rang the undertakers or they rang the church. But so somebody from Hunmanby Church came, or somebody from the undertakers in Hunmanby came, and removed the grave marker. So I've contacted the church. He's contacted me this week. He's done a bit of digging. So anybody thinks I'm telling fibs, which I'm not, contact church. He spoke to me this week, and they've no knowledge of the grave marker. So even in the background, you're nibbling away at these things. The undertakers, I've spoke to them. They're still going to get back to me. I'd like to find out what happened to it. We might find out if there's a record of the actual inscription and the actual year, and from there we might be able to dig a little bit deeper. I'm not attributing the grave marker to the poltergeist activity, but it's still an important element because it's come up in the story.
Okay. Lee James Blunt. This is a good question. Now, it's a question I would have asked. Have you ever spoken to the people who live at the lighthouse at Flamborough regarding sightings?
Well, we've done it, Les. We've done the question, mate.
Actually, he's asking that question, but I know there's lots of little houses round there. So I'd like to sort of expand that question. Have you talking to the people who live on that right near the lighthouse?
One person. One person who gave me some information. I nearly said what they'd given me then, and then that puts them in loop. But given me some information about the light forms, some proper detailed documents about the light forms, and due to the nature of their job. And that's all. I've not spoken to the other people. They were, I think in 2017, there were a body found in Selwick's Bay, which is just below the lighthouse. And I went round and did a bit of research. I was interested because it was found on November the 6th, 2017. All right, okay, day before bonfire night. But me and Bob Brown filmed the light forms over the sea. Really good bit of footage on November the 5th. Weren't fireworks. This is out at sea. So I'm not saying that that's connected. I'm not saying that that's related, but it was intriguing that the next day that this happened. And it were in the paper. I've heard nothing more about it. The paper said this chap's name, and I just I went down to the cove, and I went, and I bumped into a few people and just asked. So I have asked. I've not got lots of information from around that particular area. And I think there's a farm. I think you've stayed on that farm with your camper van. They've got a bit of information for me regarding XS894, the lightning that crashed. You see, it never switches off. That's 1970, September 8th, 1970. So you think some things, well, not so dead and buried. You think something's just in the past and it's never going to be revived, but the information's still there. And I know that the farmers, and the ones you've spoken to, or the grandfather of that farm, were ordered to plough one of their fields out because, as the word of the day was, a flying saucer landed on the cliff tops in early September 1970, and men in suits from the ministry came and asked him to plough that field out. And I've got that from the butcher, the former butcher of Flamborough, who was called Dean Bolton, and Dean won't mind me mentioning his name because he was a schoolboy at the time, and they went to look at the landing traces of this UFO. So it runs and runs. Like Hummonby's running in the background, Wilsthorpe is, and no doubt there'll be more cases. And I'm not unique. There's people researching stuff all over the world and all over this area.
Yeah, and I've got to answer that. Yeah, I was talking to the wife of the present farmer, who was probably the son of the farmer who lived there.
That's correct.
And she's very interested in the subject, and she did know something about it, Paul. And yeah, it's well worth contacting.
Yeah, I will be doing. That'll be on my kind of list to get round to. I won't say next few months. It might be in summer. It might be just through the winter. Because I don't want to be a pest. I don't want to pester people. But
yeah,
just I'll put the question out there and just see whether we can get a bit more information, and it just adds a bit more meat to the bone of a really historic case, XS894. Anybody on internet who's not familiar with it, you want to look into it. It's an interesting one.
Well, on that note, Paul, I think we've covered quite a lot of subjects.
I thank everybody for sending us these questions tonight, because we didn't know whether we were going to get through an hour of chat or whether even we were going to get to an hour. So really appreciated, because it's saved me just having to think of things from the Truth Proof books and talk to you about stuff that you probably heard before. So thank you. And thank you, Les and Deborah.
Yeah, that's it, Paul. I've got to thank you, Paul, and I've got to thank Deborah, and hope everybody on the stream has enjoyed it tonight. Thanks for all your support. Please like, subscribe, and follow this channel. And if you know anybody who similarly likes this kind of subject, pass the links on to them, because I'm sure they'll see what we've done in the past has been pretty good, and if they like it, they will like it even more, because we've got some great guests coming up. I'll leave Paul to say who next week's guest will be.
Yeah, fingers crossed we'll be speaking to the Swansea UFO Network, two guys from there, Emlyn and Mike Maunder. So really looking forward to hearing what they've got to tell us from their neck of the woods, from Wales. It should be interesting. And as Les said, just share the link to the live stream if you would, please. It helps us. And as he said as well, if anybody's in the chat tonight they've not subscribed, please subscribe, and we'll endeavour to just bring you the truth as we see it. Thank you.
Well, I can't add any more to that, Paul, and thanks again, Paul, for tonight, and we will see you all next week. As I say, have a safe week, and we'll catch you next time.